I'm Nick Gray from HDblog, and this is the Huawei Mate 8. It features an impressive spec list, and its aluminum unibody design is reminiscent of some of the phones we've seen from HTC in the past. But is it really good enough to be labeled as a flagship device? Let's find out. Unveiled at CES last month, the Mate 8 is the latest flagship device from Huawei. It's one of the fastest devices we've seen in a long time. But before we talk about performance, we're going to take a look at its design. The Mate 8 shares a lot of the same design DNA as the Mate S and the Nexus 6P from last year. The phone's aluminum chassis sports a powder coat finish with a gorgeous chamfered edges where the metal meets the glass on the front of the phone. The power and volume keys on the edge offer decent tactile feedback, and the circular fingerprint sensor on the back of the phone is positioned perfectly to be used with your index finger. The fingerprint sensor itself is the same one that's used on the Nexus 6P. It's fairly reliable, but not quite as fast as the one we used on HTC's One A9. The bottom edge of the phone sports two speaker grills on either side of the USB port, but only the right one is actually functional. It's pretty loud and manages to produce decent bass, but the audio quality isn't as full as what you would get from the Nexus 6P or even one of HTC's boom sound equipped phones. At first glance, the front of the phone looks quite sparse, but the Mate 8 does have a hidden notification light on the front, and Huawei has even added a subtle texture on the white panels which sit above and below the display. The 6-inch 1080p LCD display on the front is quite striking. The panel is massive, but Huawei has managed to source a near bezel-less panel which gives the phone a staggering 78% screen-to-body ratio. Yes, 1080p on a 6-inch device may sound quite underwhelming these days, but we are more than happy with the quality of the panel. It holds up quite well under extreme angles and even under direct sunlight, though blacks do tend to get washed out if you're watching a movie or a TV show in a dark room. Now for the specs. The Mate 8 is powered by the new Kirin 950, a quad-core chip which is clocked at 2.3 GHz. That's paired with 3 GB of RAM and 32 GB of internal storage on our unit. But there is also an option for a 4 GB of RAM and 32 GB of internal storage if you're willing to spend a little bit more. As mentioned earlier, the Huawei Mate 8 is fast, and it has enough processing power to put most flagship phones to shame. Benchmark tests put the Mate 8 at the top of nearly every list, and day-to-day use of the phone backs up those numbers. And using the phone for more than a week, the only time the system was laggy was when we were restoring all of the apps from Google Play when we were first setting up the device. From then, performance has been silky smooth. Apps appear to open instantaneously when you tap their icons, and gaming is a dream. The Kirin 950 has a lot to do with the phone's impeccable performance, but the phone's low-resolution display also comes into play, as the processor simply doesn't have that many pixels to push around. The only disappointing aspect of the phone's performance is its multitasking capabilities. The Mate 8 manages to keep a handful of apps running in the background, but Huawei software is tweaked to optimize battery life, killing off apps if they've been idle for more than a few minutes. Fortunately, that leads to some good news: a phone with superb battery life. Combine Huawei's power management tweaks with the efficiency of the Kirin 950, the 1080p display, and Android's DOS feature, and you have yourself a phone that is nearly impossible to fully drain in a 24-hour period. Even with 6 hours of screen on time, the Mate 8 would consistently still have 20% charge when we plugged it in at night. And if you really wanted to push it, you could definitely get 3 to 4 days on a single charge. Those who love the traditional look and feel of Android will feel out of place when using the Mate 8. As is the case with most Chinese manufacturers, Huawei's EMUI takes more cues from iOS than it does from stock Android. There's no app drawer, all icons are given rounded corners, and even the notification panel has a dark frosted glass treatment. But it's not all bad. The UI is clean and even more cohesive than what you get on some LG devices, and even the lack of an app drawer can be appealing for those who are buying a smartphone for the first time. Huawei has included some unique gesture controls, which allow you to capture screenshots or directly launch an application by tapping your phone's display with your knuckles. We're sure a few people will find them interesting, but the gestures themselves feel awkward and don't really improve the phone's usability. The rear camera is equipped with a 16-megapixel sensor with optical image stabilization, face detection autofocus, and a 27mm f2.0 lens. While the camera app is slow to launch and is a pure ripoff from iOS, it actually manages to capture some decent pictures. In well-lit conditions, colors are nearly perfect, but things fall off dramatically in low light. Even with the phone's optical image stabilization, images turn out dark, and you'll need to take 3 to 4 shots before one turns out blur-free. Overall, the Huawei Mate 8 is a pretty decent phone. We just have a hard time recommending it right now, simply because Samsung, LG, and other manufacturers will be unveiling even better devices at Mobile World Congress at the end of February. In the end, the only person who should really consider buying the Mate 8 is someone who loves large screen smartphones and absolutely must have a device that's guaranteed to last a full day on a single charge. As always, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please hit that thumbs up button below if you liked our review. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos from HDblog.